July, and the beets are already a big enough size to pickle. Now, I don't like to wait until they're like super huge. I find they get a bit woody, so I like mine small. Anyway, actually, I like them really tiny, but they grew beyond that. And by pulling them today, I'm going to leave some more room for the plants that are around them, because I kind of squished everything in, so it'll leave more room for the tomatoes and the onions. So I'm going to pull the beets and pickle the beets and get them in jars ready to enjoy for the whole winter. So let's go. You can see here that these tidy treat cherry tomatoes are looking fantastic. Big flowers everywhere. But here in front I had planted some beets in the early spring, and they are a decent size for pulling and pickling. I like them small like this. So let's get them all out of here and leave some room for the tomatoes. There we go. And there's more tucked in around the other vegetables. Now these back here will give the cabbages some more room. Look at the size of that one already. Oh, these ones really enjoyed being back here. All right, now we're going to trim them back. I think that's all of them. So after pulling them, all I do is cut the tops off. I leave a little bit, about that much, because the beets will bleed otherwise. And I'm using my hod so that I can rinse them off before taking them inside to cook them. I'm going to see if the chickens want to have a treat of beet greens. This one's a little too small to use. Oh well, they'll make a nice treat for the chickens. But this one I still will use. I'll use it whole. There we go. Bucket full of beet greens for the chickens. And a hod full of beets to pickle. The chickens have already had their apple treat today, but they're going to get a bonus beet treat. Here, what do you think? Nice treat for today. Hey, you back there. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you. Woo! Get the mud and the dirt off. There wasn't much on them though, they were pretty clean. So here we are back in my not dream kitchen. For those of you who joined me for when I made my mother's German fresh strawberry torta, you'll know that this is the original kitchen of this 50-year-old house. And while I'm sure the previous owner loved it, I do not. So, but for the time being, this renovation is not at the top of the list, so I'm going to have to make do in my not dream kitchen while we prepare these beets that we just picked out of the garden. So the first thing we have to do, and this is my father's recipe. This is how he taught me to pickle beets. My father was from Newfoundland, and they did a lot of their own preserving and canning. So the first thing we have to do is boil the beets until they're soft, and we do that by putting them in pots based on their size so that they cook evenly. The pots with the smaller beets, of course, will take off sooner because they'll be done faster, and the bigger ones we'll put in a different pot so they can cook a little longer. So let's do that. I've got a couple of different size pots here, and I think I have fewer large beets and more of the medium small beets. So we'll put the large ones in here and the smaller ones in the big white pot. We do not cut the roots off them because, again, all the color will bleed out and it'll just mix for a messy water. There we go. Now we want to leave enough room so we can cover them with water, and then we're going to put them on the stove to boil until they are soft. This pot will probably take about 40 minutes, 45 minutes. This pot, probably more like an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. So let's do that. So now we're going to let them come to a boil until when we stick a little paring knife in them, they are soft all the way through. So it's been about an hour. The small ones are cooked and already drained, and now we're going to drain the. If you stick a knife in, there's no resistance at all. It goes right in. These are definitely done. So now we're going to peel and cut the beets and get them ready to start the pickling process. So you can see I have a big glass bowl out here. You can use plastic if you want, but it might discolor the plastic because the juice of the beet is almost like a dye. So I use a big glass bowl. So this is now cool. You can put your hand in easily. And all you have to do, because these have been cooked so nice, is just peel the skin off like that with your hands. Now I let the peelings drop back into the water. Makes cleanup easier. Cut the top off, cut the root stem off, and then you can peel it or quarter it depending on how you want it to look. Into your jar. I am going to slice these. Try and keep the thickness even for pickling. See how easy that skin slips off? If you think your slice is going to be too big, you can always cut your beet in half first and then slice it. You can see the inside of the beet still steaming. Now when you have a decent layer in your bowl, before you continue to put more on, you can add a bit of salt. I'm afraid I don't have measurements. About that much salt. And a bit of sugar. About that much sugar. And we're going to continue doing that after each layer of beets. So this bowl was big enough for all our beets. You can see there's room on top for the liquid. And the last layer of salt and sugar was put on. And now we're going to cover it with a mixture of 50-50 water and regular white vinegar, not the pickling vinegar, just regular vinegar. So let's do that. So that's 2 cups water. So I know from doing this for many years that this bowl will hold about 4 cups. So that's why I did 2 cups water, 2 cups vinegar. But if you're unsure of how much your bowl will hold, do half and half in each cup so that you know you have enough room to put it in. And I'm just going to mix this around to make sure everything's covered. In fact, I'm going to add a little bit more because you can see some of the beets peeking out. So that's half a cup of water. And half a cup of vinegar. I'm actually going to do one more. Half a cup. There, that's better. Now everything is very easily covered. So the last thing I'm going to do for today is cover this bowl and let it sit for 24 hours. If I had a big enough beeswax wrap, I would use that, but unfortunately I only have smaller ones. So I'm just going to use some plastic wrap, cover it, let it sit for 24 hours, and then tomorrow I'll finish by canning the beets. So it's the next day, the beets have been sitting for 24 hours, in the bowl, and now I'm getting ready to finish the job and can them. I have my jars sterilizing here on the stove, and then I have my other equipment here on the kitchen table ready to go. So I've got everything I need here, my beets in the bowl. I figure I'll need about 5 jars, so I've got 5 lids prepared, but I have more if I need them. Some vinegar in case I need more liquid in the jars. Onions, which I have sliced in rounds. And pickling spice. Some paper towel to protect the table. And a ladle to get the beets out. So I'm ready to go. Boil the lids just in a little pot of water for about 5 minutes.
So you'll notice I had a little glitch in recording and didn't show me filling the first few jars. But all I do is take the sterilized jars and put some onion in the bottom, just a ring or two. Then just fill them with the beets. Top it up with the liquid to 1/2 inch from the top. And then I add 1/2 teaspoon of pickling spice. I like to put it in at the end so that over time it slowly makes its way down from the top of the jar to the bottom and can flavor the whole thing. Then I add the warmed lids, close them fingertip tight, and they're ready for processing. It's that simple.
No matter how hard I try, I always make a mess. Okay, so now let's water bath can these jars. So you can see that I don't have a real canning pot, but this is just a big stock pot that I use, and keep the jars off the bottom, which is important because if your jars touch the bottom of your pot, they might explode. So I just put some old canning rings in the bottom, old ones that I won't use anymore for canning because they're very rusty. I put them in the bottom, and that's what my jars sit on. Now these are pint jars. We're going to let them water bath can for 30 minutes, making sure that we have at least 1 inch of water on top of the jar lids, which we do. So we're just going to leave these alone to do their thing. Well, it's been 30 minutes, so we're going to turn this off and let it cool down. And I'm going to begin taking out the jars to cool. Now, the good news is the water is not purple, which means none of my cans or none of my jars exploded. So there we are, all done. When these cool and I hear the little pop that says the seal is good, I'll just take a black marker and I'll write 22 on them to remind me that these were canned in 2022, and we will enjoy these all winter long. I hope you've enjoyed this, and maybe you'll think about canning some of your own beets from your garden. Bye for now.